Okay, welcome everybody to the Town of Bluff Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. We are meeting virtually. The time is 6:01 p.m. and we'll start with a roll call of Planning and Zoning Commissioners. This is Amanda Podmore, Chair.
Marcia Haydenfeld.
Leah Collins.
And Whitney.
Gary Hawes.
Thank you. And then from Town Council.
Luann Hook.
Awesome. And then welcome Craig and any members of the public. We have a big agenda tonight, but as always, we'll start with opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to give a public comment up to 3 minutes in length, please let me know. Okay. Public comment closed. Thanks, everybody. Let's do approval of minutes from March 6th, 2025. So Malia is sharing. Thanks, Malia.
Mm-hmm. How's the size?
I could zoom a little bit.
I was zooming in on the wrong thing.
Nice.
All right. Gonna just scroll down till I see something. There we have. Wow, it's almost too big. Oh, you added.
So yeah, under other, Marcia clarified it to say Haydenfeld expressed appreciation for the county P&Z administrator and assistant attorney during the recent land use development and management ordinance community workshops. And in response to a public comment made at the Bluff County meeting, the county meeting in Bluff, emphasized that PZ works under state mandates in the general plan developed by the community. Does that sound good?
Yes, that is correct. County meeting in Bluff. Good, thank you. I just, someone said something there and I was just kind of answering it in public here.
Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Any other changes?
That's all. Motion to approve them as edited. Approve the minutes for 3/6/25.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Yeah.
All right.
Aye.
Motion passes. Minutes are approved. Thanks, everybody. I'll get those posted. Okay. So next we'll go into old business. Item 1 is town council update. I guess, Luann, item 2 is update from the building department. So I guess to the extent you're comfortable updating us on that, feel free to jump into that as well.
Okay, yeah, it was all kind of mixed together. Maybe somebody seemed like maybe Kristen will be on, but yeah, that's a lot of what we did this last week since we had our joint session was working on the building department to get that going. Worked on the fee schedule. We did hire Kristen Bushnell and Corey Coleman to be our building department, basically on a 4-month schedule. And then at the end of 4 months, we'll reevaluate and see if we need them, if they still want to stay, whatever. So that's good because we have Corey is the inspector. Kristen has been working with Aaron a lot in developing the building department and getting all that. One of on the fee schedule, we took off since after the public hearing and whatnot, we decided no animal fees except for a $5 if you need a replacement tag, and the rest are left on or complimentary. Trying to get people to sign up without making them a lot of trouble. Use the prorated type of building costs instead of just a big flat fee, assuming you're building a big structure. This makes it more manageable for smaller businesses that are doing a small project and then maybe next year another small project or something. So it's a cheaper building permit start, and then you go in and percentage of the project that you're doing, which is supposed to correlate with how much work it takes them to look at the plans, do the inspections, and then you still pay for an inspection, $65. So one of the things that we did trim down was the solar based on the general plan and the strategic plan, trying to encourage people to do solar. So now it's just a $100 fee for residential, and commercial sticks with that program of how much you put in. The more you put in, the more you pay. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the building department. There are a lot of things online now. If you go to townofbluff.org, there's just tonight, there's things different than it seemed like they were even this morning. So that's there, and some forms are showing up. Yeah, I don't know what else I might, if you have questions after, we can talk about that. But the old highway, we've been talking with Jones and DeMille, and the old highway, the one here in town that leaves on 4th and winds through town, goes past the fort, goes around and pops out at Twin Rocks. Michael Havikin has been working on that to get that a little smoothed up. He did discuss it with them, with just he and Ann, and they decided to take the trail portion off of the proposal. I wasn't too happy because of our active transportation plan and wanting safe and comfortable streets, but that's not what they asked them to do. So the proposal will come without that portion. I think, was it last time that we approved the subdivision Appendix A for roads? Okay. Let's see. On the airport lease, we did vote to sign the airport lease. And so that is back to the BLM. And in the next few years, we need to see what funding options there are. That talk to the engineers that do the airport, talk to BLM. There's some options all the way around. So that's moving forward. That's what we all need to be thinking about, is how to keep it funded enough that it doesn't cost the town so much, and it's not so much that the town loses it, is the idea. Let's see, and the CIB, we've got an update on the CIB. That's a big loan program through the oil and gas fields. And what we've got on there is the backhoe's still on there. Next meeting, we're going to reevaluate the priorities. So the airport, it's one of those things that they would like to fund usually. A fire truck was requested to start doing sort of a transfer to being self-sustainable. And the old school, especially since the funding was lost, that EPA grant was lost. So this could be a good one to add. Blanding's doing a similar thing. They also are redoing their old elementary school and wanting to refurbish it. So it fits into the CIB also. And then I believe we talked about this at the joint one, but the off-street parking ordinance was tabled. That was one that you guys worked on some, and then it did not fly. So let's see. That's what I have on my notes. So do you have questions, building department wise or other?
Yeah. Can you speak to, I know that the land use clearance fee was still left in the master fee schedule. Can you speak to maybe the plan around land use clearances?
Yes, and it remained at 200. And so, for instance, so you still have to pay a land use clearance.
But I think the idea was that was eventually going to be phased out. Can you speak to that, or should I get an update?
Yeah, we didn't talk about phasing it out. We just left it on the master fee schedule. That is something. So yeah, because the building department will manage, site plans. They'll look at all the setbacks, they'll do all of that. So the land use clearance was still going to be in there in order to pass that on to the building department. But anyway, at this point, it's still $200. And then, so like if you're doing solar, it's $200 for the land use and then $100 for the solar. So yeah,
Okay.
just reporting.
No, I'm sorry, Amanda. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm very confused by this, because my understanding was that the discussion said now that they don't have to prove to the building department that they met Bluff standards, we would skip that step and let the application for what they're doing speak to meeting Bluff standards. So in my opinion, you've saddled someone with an extra fee. So that's just my comment right now. There's more on my question list, but I'll stop there.
Okay. And Malia is, maybe she's going to share. Nope, that's mine.
Yes,
Sorry.
I am.
Okay, mine is doing something really weird. But yeah,
So my
Malia was
understanding-
at that meeting, so if you give your interpretation, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, my understanding from the meeting was that they were going to keep it on the master fee schedule while the building department is still figuring it out because it's still in the process of being built. And since the master fee schedule needed to be approved, we don't have to apply the fee, even if it's in the master fee schedule. It's just like in the interim that we're going to continue doing land use clearances until we hear otherwise. But it is probably something that's going to be phased out and that we'll work with the building department on.
Thanks, Malia. Yeah, because Marcia, I think we all share your concern that we're now charging an extra fee for something that's part of the building permit process. So I will be sure to follow up with folks about it and just advocate for our position on that.
Right, and I think, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but it also seemed to be kind of important to come to planning and zoning and not just have, I guess that's what we kind of came around to was it's instead of just having a building department, and I don't mean just a building department, but you could have somebody in the office that signs off on something without planning and zoning's really overlook on it to make sure it is in the right zone, to make sure there are the setbacks and all those things, and then pass it to the building department was, I think, kind of what we all settled on. So.
Well, I just, once again, sorry to jump in there, but that was the point too. Planning and zoning should not see half the things we see. Planning and zoning should not see everyday residences and everyday, because a building department does that. We write the rules, you guys approve them, and then the building department does them. And I understand in the transition, if Kristen says, hey guys, I haven't set up my office yet or something, could you do me a couple of LUCs to make sure they're ready for me? Yes, I understand transition, but I do not want to hear that finally getting a building department means duplicating the work. I have never in my years on planning and zoning, and there are a lot of them, seen the plans for a residence, for a residential structure until I did it in Bluff through the LUC process. Because if it fits all of the things that it does, the building department signs off, does their inspections, collects their money, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
And I realize we're not there today, but I just want to make sure we don't duplicate this for everyone.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect explanation, Marcia.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcia. Any other questions for Luann?
I have a
Well,
can I ask a, sorry.
Oh, I just was going to say we still have the land use clearance required for solar also. So that's still in there too. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just have a procedural question that really I'm just wondering about if someone, maybe this is a better offline question, but so the master fee schedule had a public comment done for it, right? But the actual building department and that ordinance did not have a public comment portion. Can someone just explain? I'm sorry, I feel naive. Can someone explain to me why implementing a building department in our town does not require input from the public? I'm just again, it's just a procedural question that I don't know.
Okay, Marcia's got her hand up. I think Marcia.
Yeah, cool.
No,
I'm sure
no.
multiple people can answer it. I just don't actually know the answer, and it was something I was curious about.
Go ahead, Lou. If you've got this, go for it.
I'm trying to think of a solid answer, but it's like the road department, the water department, all of these departments, hiring a manager, all of those things don't require public hearings. It's sort of an administrative.
Because they're like foundational aspects of the thing.
Yep.
And then okay.
Yeah,
And
the
it is-
rules have to go to public hearing and any changes in zones and all that kind of stuff, but not those things that are kind of administrative.
Okay.
Legislative and administrative are the, you're saying that a building department should exist in a municipality or a county or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that must follow prescribed procedure, if you will.
Oh,
It's
okay,
gonna-
sure. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I agree with you, Brian, that people, should be allowed to speak to it. So,
Right.
for example, in everything we're talking about, if people go to Kristen over these next couple of months and go, what? You have to paint your house purple? Well,
Yeah,
they're
right,
going,
right.
they will come to town council and they will say, could you please fix something? So we will see some
Comments, for
input,
sure.
hopefully, and some things we might have goofed up on or something, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's the process through the state mandates are you must
Okay.
make your departments work.
Yeah, that's perfect. I just had a couple of people ask me that and I didn't have an answer to them. So I was just wondering for the procedural answer as to why some things require another. No, that sounds like a
Yeah.
great answer. Thank you.
And then
The
when
code,
sorry, when you charge people, if you're adding a tax or you're adding
Right.
fees, then
Right,
they
that
have to
requires
raise.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That triggers it.
yeah,
Cool.
it's budget, fiduciary that triggers like taxes and land use issues that need public hearings.
Yeah, I think the confusion for me was just that there's a host of regulations and rules that come with implementing a building department. But I think Marcia's explanation of extending sort of pre-existing codes makes sense to me.
Nice.
So are we still discussing town stuff or are we on number 2, the building department? Because I do have a couple of questions there. Amanda, you direct.
Yeah, let's, any further town update questions for Luann? Okay, then let's move on to item 2, update from building department, which Luann, thank you, you largely covered, but Marcia, go ahead.
Sure. I would like to say that the new building ordinance is terrific. I read it. It's really well done. I didn't agree with every word, but who cares? I mean, you just like we just said, it's going to grow or change or fix itself over, the next little bit. But I thought it was so, I don't know, clear, perhaps so concise. I was very appreciative of it. But it lent to a couple of questions. In particular, it did on the building application. Malia, is that something that you could bring up? Because Erin sent it to us the other day. I was hoping we could look at a couple questions and see if I could figure them out with your help, guys. The first one is, what is a conditioned space? Under building information, square footage of conditioned space, square footage of unconditioned space. Does
So
anybody know that term?
yeah, what that's for is, so if it's inside a house, basically, so it's square footage in a house compared to square footage like on a porch or something else, something like that. An attachment that's not regulated with heating and cooling.
So does conditioned is the inside part, the unconditioned is that extra stuff.
Right. So there's a cheaper price per square foot on that. And that was another thing that we decided was to keep commercial and residential separate, following what San Juan County had. San Juan County had residential at $1.75 a square foot instead of this amount that you spend on it. So there'll be two separate things. And I don't know that these are all completely up to date yet. There were a couple things that they were still going to change.
Okay. Another question, and perhaps Malia, you could go down a little because I think it's lower down. There we go. Okay. Yes. Under building permit application checklist, the second one says land use clearance approval letter from the Planning Commission. And my question to us is, let's say we're keeping the LUC for the moment, because in transition we might be. Amanda, do you write a letter or do you merely send a signed copy?
I send a signed copy. Well, I don't love having my cell phone on this.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird.
I'm going to give a little feedback about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. You should be strictly reached through the either your email or the town office should, forward, or the building office should. So I just am pointing out something that might need cleaned up right there. So it says approved land use clearance signature or something like that, as opposed to letter, just for clarification.
Yeah.
Well, and it would just be removed if, it probably shouldn't be on the form at all, because if this is transitory.
Right. Just perhaps approved land use clearance if necessary or something, might just, or not at all. And then the next one, list of signed LUC application. Oh, just signed. Okay, I believe that those are my two main questions. I love having this piece of paper. It follows in Malia's footsteps of leading through nice paperwork that, people can check easily.
It's lovely.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And if just cleaning up a couple things like your phone number. Thank you. So that I was so pleased to see all of this. That's my comment.
And it's a fillable form. Mwah, chef's kiss. Nice. Okay. Any other thoughts on or questions about the building department?
I have one.
Go ahead, Gary.
In reading through it, under building permit required, it lists out the construction, the alteration, or repair. So if my horse kicks a hole in my barn, I've got to give a building permit to do a repair of it. I don't know if that's a better question for Kristen, or it's
So
on.
Yeah,
right.
that's addressed in the regulations, which brings up a good point that we need to update, like basically the flow chart, or make a new flow chart for what is that requirement. We try to make like a visual aid for folks, Gary, that they can click on and say, okay, this if I have this, do I need a building permit? If I have this, do I need a building permit? So maybe we can take that on for the next work session.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of confused me a little bit on that one, and then I think it was the next one down, that the responsibility to determine whether a permit is required rests with the property owner. So I guess that would go with that flow chart again that you would look at, or
It has contractor or applicant, so it does have.
Gary, I think what it means is if you're about to do a project, you darn well better know whether you need a building permit. If you're the owner or the contractor or the worker bee, hey, wait a minute, we can't start this without checking to see if we need a permit. So I think that's what that means.
yeah, I guess it's just the two of them, that the repair thing threw me, and then that. But okay, have any building permits been issued yet? Do we know, or is there a way to research that?
Not this week.
So since it's been organized, none?
Yeah, I don't think there've been any issued yet, but I guess I don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah, that word repair is an excellent question, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like this is the first that it's showing up, so it might be worth just asking them to add repair as a definition and the extent of what the repair that requires a building permit, or just removing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice catch.
That's it.
He's not, what he's not telling us is one of the horses did kick a hole in the barn.
I'll never tell.
No, thanks for reading it. I appreciate you reading through it, because a lot of different eyes catch different things. So.
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, if we have questions about it, is Kristen the best person to?
Mm-hmm. She
like,
is.
I have another question, but it's in the minutia of one of the exemptions, so I can just send my question over to her, if that makes more sense.
Well, tell us so we know what
Oh, I
we,
was just wondering what in the exemption there was. Oh, I guess it's not in this exact copy anymore. I was reading something that had an exemption that listed out projects, like mechanical projects that don't require a building permit, but I don't see it in what was passed.
Yeah, I think Kristen and Aaron worked on this a bunch, and maybe you did too, Malia. I'm not sure your involvement, but okay. So those two are the ones, and they worked really hard and strong to get this simplified as much as they could and to get it out. So I'm sure there could be more changes that need to happen, but they did try to simplify it as much as possible. And then they did put the link, a hyperlink to the Utah code.
I wonder if it was in the code. Yeah, the question I had really was more about, I mean, I don't see it in there anymore, so I must have been looking at the previous version.
Okay.
So that is all good.
Yeah.
I just pulled up the application exemptions. Did you see it on there?
No, it was a question about a definition about a self-contained 10-pound refrigerant cooling system that was listed in one of the, it was very specific, and I just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
So, but it's not there anymore, so it's all good.
They also didn't know. Just kidding. I'm sure they knew.
Well, I mean, I don't want to delete it because it's one of those things you just check out. I just didn't know what it meant, but that's all good.
Cool.
I don't see it no more.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, why don't we move on for now? But I can check in with Aaron and folks tomorrow about some of these things. Let's move on our agenda. Item 3, RV ordinance update. We have verified with Chris that he has received the ordinance, but that's the extent of the update we have. So that's all I can share on that. Unless, do you have it, Malia?
This is just our final
Oh,
draft.
okay.
So I had an assignment that I started working on it, as you can see, 5:46 p.m. today. And so the question that I had, I'd like to just talk about this real quick, because the question was the mobile home. So this is the mobile home in the residential district. And the question was the maximum density in residential. And according to our handy dandy, I don't know, my papers are going everywhere, Town of Bluff regulation matrix, we do not have a max density in residential. And so
that
my
is
question
correct.
was, on this, it was maximum of 6 mobile homes per acre pending septic approval. And so my thought on this was, the reason we put 6, and that 6 is obviously up for, it can be whatever we want it to be or whatever the town wants it to be, but that was us setting the density for mobile homes, for mobile home parks. Is that your guys' understanding?
Yes, Malia, I think the only word density in our existing zoning codes is that commercial or some, and then maybe agricultural or something weird, but we don't talk about density. We talk about if you can fit it in your lot legally and health and safety are met, like septic, then you're fine. You can have 17 houses on your acre, but you can't, but the maximum of 6 mobile homes, we were trying to determine what you can fit there without making a residential lot look or to not work, let's say.
Yeah.
So the question we heard, or the comment we heard from mobile home people or RV park people and stuff was, you don't have to tell us that, we know what we can fit. So I know that was a concern. However, we were just talking about it within residential restriction. So it's a good question, Malia. If we don't have density concerns in houses, why would we have them in RVs? I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, the requirement still stands that they have to meet setbacks. So that was, I had said I would go in and edit it, and we don't have to rehash all of this. I just wanted that little bit of clarification because that was our mindset with, we are setting density with this ordinance for a residential mobile home park. So it's a very specific thing that we're setting density on, but that is what we are doing here.
Okay.
It is also considered a minor subdivision, so I don't know if that would change things. So it might be necessary to change it to 5, so that it is not considered a minor subdivision. Because a minor subdivision is 6 or less.
Well, but that's actual lots as opposed to
Right.
structure.
Correct.
So that wouldn't be a
then-
subdivision
so
if
then-
it was a mobile home park.
Okay.
But my suggestion generally is like, let's keep this in mind. And I think we should, when we get edits from Ann or Chris, then we like open it all up in one work session instead of like
Yeah.
having a bunch of work sessions on it. Yeah, just waiting until we get that bigger feedback too.
Yeah.
So, but thanks for raising that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had. Thanks, everybody.
Sweet. Anything else on the RV ordinance? All right, let's move on then. Item 4, PZ or planning and zoning bylaws update. So there was a bit of a snafu in the one of the comments in our for something we wanted to change in our bylaws didn't translate well to the version that the town council was looking at. So I've been delayed in approving it. They'll be looking at it at our next work session, but it sounded like the town council generally liked our suggestions. They had a couple other, I don't have more details than that though. Luann, do you have any additional details on that?
What, I'm trying to remember what was your concern? We didn't pass it? There was a lot on that meeting.
The bylaws had a paragraph about how an application is appealed, and we as a commission had decided that's not our bylaws aren't a place for something like that. That's something that is actually in an ordinance, and so we were suggested cutting that. But our comment in the document to say cut this accidentally went to like a different part of the document, and so the town missed it. And anyway, we fixed it.
No, I'm sorry. I don't. That's going to have to be passed on to somebody.
Yeah. All good. We will.
So-
I think y'all are going to deal with it in a public or in a work session.
Okay.
We're done with it. The town has to sign off on it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions there? All right. Item, would folks be amenable to us moving item 8, the McDermott land use clearance, up to now so that Patrick doesn't have to wait any longer?
Totally.
Yeah, and just found my notes on the bylaws. Britt did a motion to approve them. Jen did. We passed those off.
Oh, I got an email today saying they weren't.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, my notes I have that we voted for those and went. So maybe there's a section that
okay.
they pulled out with the legal opinion or something. So yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption, but yeah.
No. Oh, good. Okay. So Patrick McDermott, thank you so much for waiting for us. We'll open up item 8, which is land use clearance approval for a solar installation at the McDermott residence. Commissioners, do you have any concerns or questions for Patrick about this, or for us?
My first quick question was, Amanda, you had mentioned you were a little concerned about measurements and setbacks, but the gentleman mentioned that he had answered you. Are you content with what you received for an answer?
Well, let's look at the drawing if we can. He said setbacks will be met,
Okay,
but I
right.
am not clear on the drawing. I wonder
Okay.
because
Patrick, do you happen to have any
Yeah.
current knowledge of where this sits to your setbacks?
We would put it at least 30 feet back from the property line. We have tons of space there. So yeah, we definitely don't want to be real close to the property line.
Okay, because it's like 15 on the side and rear of 15
Yeah.
feet on side and rear. So you're saying you're well within it? So-
We are. And in fact, that diagram right there doesn't actually, our property is actually a rectangle. There's no angular lines. It goes all the way across the wash. So yeah, we have lots of room there. And we'll definitely do at least a 30-foot setback.
Okay, can I ask then for a little clarification of why we have a drawing that is incorrect to property lines, et cetera? I mean, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just trying to say, why is your?
I can get that modified. We provided the satellite view, which I just saw a second ago.
Yeah, it's above.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so from the satellite view, you can see the line where the trees end, and that line just keeps going all the way across the wash. That's our property line. But I can definitely ask them to modify the drawing if that would make it more helpful.
So if in fact we were to say something like approved except for corrected paperwork or something to that effect, you feel comfortable that can be shown?
Yeah, that shouldn't take more than that's a real simple edit. I can email them tomorrow and talk to them about it.
Okay, and I'm not saying we're approving, I'm just saying if there's a question of what we're looking at, we'd like it correct.
Sure.
Okay, okay. Gary's got his hand up, sorry.
Gary, go ahead.
It looked like on the drawing that the setback on the south side was 10 feet instead of 15 feet. Is
That's
that down there at the bottom?
that's what I was wondering, but what Patrick's saying is the property line actually extends well beyond. That's not the correct property line, is what
To the
Patrick's saying.
south
Yeah.
Yeah.
or to the east?
He was referring to the east. It's incorrectly drawn to the east.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the south one is only 10 foot to the property line.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'll have them correct that. We talked about being well within, over the setback requirement just to be safe. So I'll correct both those things. So what I'll do is we'll correct the drawing so that it shows the southern border correctly and the eastern border, and I'll get them to modify the setbacks too.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or concerns from commissioners?
I don't think so. I think it looked pretty good otherwise. That was my big
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, that was my only concern. So
Yeah.
Um,
In that case, I motion to approve this land use clearance with the caveat that we first must receive the drawings that have the correct setback of at least 15 feet on the side
And the
Just so that-
property line.
on the property line. Yeah, thanks.
I'll second that motion for approval with correction.
Okay.
After correction.
great. Any discussion? I'm comfortable with this. Yeah, no discussion. Okay. Let's call the vote to order. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. So, Patrick and Monique, when you can get us a updated drawing, and I know you're still trying to get the $200 check to Aaron, I think tomorrow, then we can do that approval. I will be out of office all next week. So, Marcia, if it comes in your, can you be acting there and
Yes,
sign that?
I can sign if just tell Aaron to let me know that you can't and I will.
Okay.
I'm just out of town on Monday for the day and then back.
Great.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Cool.
Thank you.
So exciting. I can't wait to see it go in.
Yeah.
How many things going on down there?
Down there.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for being the first guinea pig to go LUC and building permit.
Let us know how it goes.
Awesome. Okay, so we will move on to item 5, report on the enforcement spreadsheet in terms of the little homework assignments that we had. Would you like to pull that up, Malia? She's doing her.
I'm going to share my entire screen and then pull it up.
Okay.
Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, so as a reminder, we had assigned different ordinances for different commissioners to review and make suggestions as to how summarize what the enforcement violations mechanisms are in the ordinance and how they might be improved. Would anybody like to share what they have so far? Just separate sheet, separate. Yeah, go ahead, Marcia.
Would you just tell us what the objective is here, how we're going to use this, or the timeliness of doing so? And the only reason I say that is because if in fact we have some more stuff to do tonight, do we want to wait and do this at a work session? Or are you looking to get something done that needs to be funneled in now?
I had the same question, I guess, so thanks for bringing that up. Malia, do you have of the urgency of this and where this stands with the town council?
I'd say it's low urgency. And my understanding at our last work session was to send your notes and suggestions to Mayor Lepinen, and she would incorporate them and go from there. And she is out of town until Wednesday, I believe. So
Oh, great.
I say we check in with her and see what she wants us to do from here. And I recommend putting it to a work session as well.
Thank you, Malia. I did send my stuff to her, and that's what triggered, wait a minute, where are we?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And I just put mine in this document itself.
Beautiful. Somebody's doing their homework the right way.
So, okay. We will get clarity on that before our next work session too. So
Cool.
Anything else on that issue?
Yeah, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I may be challenged, but I've tried to find online the Bluff Municipal Code that says it on there on the aviation one. And I can't find it anywhere. Is it just written?
So
That was one of our questions, was a lot of these ordinances reference the Bluff Municipal Code.
the BMC.
Yeah,
And we weren't clear what that was. It's not clear to the public. I
Yeah,
think it's the zoning, isn't it the zoning ordinance?
Is it the zoning ordinance? Is that what we're calling the Bluff? Wow. Wrong button.
No, the Bluff Municipal Code, as I would understand it, would be the entire set of ordinances set into code. And that's why, okay, for example, if I'm doing the, when I was doing, which ordinance was I supposed to do? Whatever one I was supposed to do, it referenced going to the next one to what the enforcement would be. And so you have to check all these numbers to figure out which part of the code you're in. It's a little, it's codification of our zoning ordinance, of our ordinances, is what it is. But the aviation overlay discussion one, we don't have one yet. We have this aviation facilities ordinance, which I don't even know what it is, but there it is. See, aviation facilities overlay. And it was passed in 2023. Gary, did you see that one?
I did. I read through that, but on the spreadsheet Malia did up, it says it's enforced by the BMC 6.80.10.
Okay.
Where's that?
The zoning code.
So you go into the zoning code and you look for section, go ahead. And then you look for, what'd you say, 60, what?
6.80.10. I searched it.
There, 680.20, 680.10 is enforcement right there. So
Okay,
you go to the end, towards the end of this document to
gotcha.
get to 60, 80, 10. It is, the
Clunky.
technical names is codification, coding our ordinances so that the numbers follow. And I did it too, Gary. I was confused when I was trying to use it for checking mine as well.
Oh, great. Okay. Hey, thank you.
See it right there?
Them all into one nice binder.
Which is why, yeah. Okay.
Well, it's good feedback for the public that
Yeah,
it's
totally.
not.
Right. No,
Pull that be in.
the millions of times I've looked up the the Utah code online, and you just have to follow the numbers down. If you're in the code, the numbers proceed. That's what eventually we're going to have. It's just taking piece by piece so far. So,
Yeah. I must have just picked the wrong section to start working down. Luann's raised her
Feel that
hand.
way a lot.
Go ahead, Luann.
Yeah, I just, on our town website, where I think it's on the front page, or if you put in code, if you go down to ordinances and applications, it looks like the link is not in there, but it says you can see them on Muni Code, which is the company that we hired quite a while ago, 2021. And so they're the ones that codify it, put it in, but it's a good question as to exactly how you cross-reference them.
Where is that? How did you get to that?
I went to the very top and just put in code, or yeah, and then go down clear to the bottom. Let's see, yeah, right there, and then it says access all ordinances and approve meeting minutes via Municode by clicking here, and then that's where the link to forms should be, because I don't think you can click on it.
yeah.
So that's in the line, but in the meantime, you just have to click to the ordinance.
No. Yeah,
Get out.
it's there, but it's not.
Wow.
Mhm.
Did not know that.
I didn't either. This is wild.
But
I
no,
knew we were working with Unidocs, but I didn't know where it was living. So
Yeah, Munidocs and Municode is, I haven't seen a bill for it for a while, but it was something that we had to pay for and have somebody codify all our stuff so you can find it in order and it's linked in correctly. But yeah, that was definitely much more advanced category of knowing how all that works.
wow, the Bluff service area is still in there. That's great. So you can go back and look at what they did. Oh my goodness.
Only till 1993, though.
Well, yeah. Okay.
I was 2 years old.
I was the secretary for Bluff service area while you were 2 years old. Okay. But Gary, I agree. You got to just sit there and go, now which number is in which, because one of mine wasn't in the zoning ordinance, it was in something else. So I had to look too. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Lou.
all right. So it sounds like we're going to keep sending anything you have to Anne. We'll get clarity before our next work session and see to what extent we'll be working on it at our work session. So
I like it.
great. Okay. Alrighty. Then next up, idling ordinance update. I don't have any updates on that. Does anybody have an update on that?
I think it's on their work session on
Okay.
Tuesday.
So we'll table that. Any further discussion maybe for our next work session. Okay, item 7, next up's on solar energy ordinance. I started, I did some online research and there's really excellent templates for solar energy ordinances. I picked one that I liked and I started, I have made it into its own Google Doc in our Drive. I was going to do one solid read through of it before I shared it with you all. It hasn't been customized to us yet, but we have a very tentative draft that I'm hoping we could start reviewing it at next work session. Very preliminary.
Amanda, does your solar worksheet include all renewable energy as in wind, et cetera, or are we only talking solar?
This one is only solar. So that is, that's a great question that we were asked to answer by town council, is if we want to consider other types of renewable energy. And if so, what that looks like. The ordinance doesn't also address the overlays issue that we'll need to do as well. So
I guess the reason I bring it up is because we're not going to get a request for a wind farm here. And I say that because when we did the ones in Monticello, the people making their presentations said there are only 2 or 3 places in the state of Utah where the wind sits properly, and Bluff isn't one of them. There are some areas around Monticello, and I'm sure that someone could do more studies and find a bench somewhere where it would work, but I don't anticipate. However, as we've seen from the development of exactly one that I know of, windmill in town that does generate energy, does that mean that other residential people are going to come forward with that? So to my mind, if we're discussing solar, I would like to throw in the word renewable in some sense so that we're ready.
mm-hmm. We'd have to define renewable though.
For sure.
Yeah. I will try to do some more work on it. That's actually not going to happen. I'm out of town all next week, and then the next 4 days after that. So I'm out of town for like 12 days.
It's
I can
okay.
help you work on it the following week, the week of like the 21st. I'm
Yeah,
available.
maybe we could do that. So maybe it won't be ready for our work session, but we could still talk about concepts at the work session.
Right, like other words for renewable energy and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sweet, yeah, and that'd be fun, Malia. We could do that.
I found it and I like the table. I went searching.
Table. Cool. Okay, then let's move on to new business. Airport overlay. This is related to item 10. So we are required by Utah state law to do an airport overlay. So the mayor proactively went to Hanson Group, who did our subdivision ordinance, and asked them if they could help with that. They said they can. They gave an hourly rate. I think the question before us was, for planning and zoning, was should they proceed? And my recommendation would be heck yes. Just curious what others think.
May I clarify just a minute? When Anne brought it to me because you were out of town, and that's when I passed that along to you for our agenda here. And that is that they offered us ideas, and the idea, or they offered us sort of choices, and those choices were they can just look at the general plan and see if it's ready to be done and that we need to do it. They can look at just airport because that would be something they're familiar with, but they could also do sort of all of the above, and that in fact would be the pricing determinations of what they offer. Then to clarify what I did is I said, Anne, if we all hold up our hand and say we'd love all the help we can get, can the town in fact pay for it? And Anne said, yes. So having said that, we are supposed to determine amongst ourselves how much help we'd like and answer Anne so she can get a more succinct proposal, if you will, from Hanson. And you're right, Amanda, that we should probably take the help we can with regard to, we have a lot of working people who can't sit around editing ordinances and stuff. So if we can decide amongst ourselves to say we would like them to do X, Y, and Z, and can get a more specific proposal.
So clarifying question. Would this be revising that ordinance that we have? Our overlay, that's not what that is. Our ordinance amending the Bluff Municipal Code to enact an aviation facilities overlay zone, the one that was Gary's assignment? Would they look over this?
I think they would look
And-
over that slash, then we were told by Kristen that we could steal the sample one, the draft one in the San Juan County's code, using
Okay.
that as a template. I think the whole point is, and we'll get, Luann has her hand up too, she may have a comment, but the point Ann made was what we decide to give them to work on, what do we want them to work on? So if we
Yeah.
pick this, yes, we do want airport, and yes, for sure, we'd love general plan help, then we can see what they'd give. So maybe Luann should comment on what I said.
Yeah, my only comment is that we haven't discussed it at all in council yet, but the airport overlay isn't that other ordinance. That other ordinance was kind of brought on pretty quickly in response to building airport and landing zone areas within the town of Bluff. So that was
That's
separate
right.
from these overlays. It wasn't about the airport. It was about putting things in town proper.
That's right, Luann, I forgot about that. That started with heliport, et cetera, didn't it?
Right.
So,
Right. That's not this at all. This
Right.
airport overlay is just, it's the one that says you can't build buildings for, 4 stories high and you have to
Right,
notify
right.
everybody. So it seems to me like quite a simple overlay process, but it seems like there should be something that we can just put down over our zoning maps and say, this is the zone that we have to notify people. It doesn't seem that complicated to me, but everybody in the state has to do it. So
right. I would agree with you, Luann, that it is fairly straightforward because it's mandated. You cannot build 2 stories until you're 50 feet or 3 stories till you're 100 feet or whatever. I'm making up the numbers, but you have to do that on top of any airport. So if we finally come along and build, for example, a really nice outhouse system out there, unlike the Fouché system, which I think still exists, then that building has to be X number of feet away and X height. That's a simple example. And then it gets more complicated. So I agree, Luann, it's fairly straightforward. And maybe what we could say is the airport overlay zone that we're stealing from the county's sample is simple enough that we don't pay Hanson to do it. We pay them to do the general plan. I don't know. I'm just saying those are their choices.
mhm. But that's my only comment. Thank you.
And Hanson Group had said that they have done the airport overlays, so they were so great to work with in our first process. I would love to. My recommendation would be that they do the airport overlay because they'll still come to us and ask for our feed to what it looks like. And then I think my suggestion is that they do the free review of our general plan, give us that review, and then we decide at a later date whether or not to pay them to update our general plan or if we can do that internally. I'd rather do the airport overlay. I'd rather not do that in-house because they have the expertise to do so. But the general plan, we could potentially do that in-house because we know that that's our area of expertise is like what we want in our general plan, but they can do that free review. So, oh my God, having a cat party
I
here.
like it.
I think that's a good idea. I'm looking on San Juan County Gov planning and I don't see their airport overlay. I guess because it wasn't approved, because it was just a draft, it's not on their website.
Correct.
Okay.
This was all part of the change that Kristen was working so hard for that got waylaid.
Okay.
I would recommend that, I don't know that we need a motion necessarily. I would recommend that Amanda write to Ann with what she just said, an answer that says, yes, we need help with the overlay. Yes, we would love a general, no charge overview of the general plan with some direction that says, hey, your general plan really needs work and let us help you. Or you guys are pretty close, go do it, and I think
Yeah.
because I would like to hear them say that. My fear is that our general plan needs enough updating that they might have to help us, because once again, the general plan is prescribed by state law.
Yeah.
And we may well have missed some things.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Great. I will do that tomorrow. Okay. All right, we'll move on to so that included item 9 and 10. Item 11, window replacement building permit question. So we had a question from an individual asking about redoing the windows of the Scoreup house and whether or not that needed a building permit. And it wasn't clear to us if like generally, I think our consensus is like a building or window replacement doesn't always need a building permit, but in this case, we went to the building department. Kristen Bushnell said yes, but for the Scoreup house, that will need a building permit. I think yeah, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I read the response from Kristen on the wall envelope. And so I started researching into it. And from the research that I got, a stone house over 100 years old does not have a wall envelope to deal with. It's wasn't in their practices for construction. They didn't have all the modern stuff to do that. And the Scoreup house is over a century old because it happens to be on the tour. And the windows that are going in are retrofit. So they're just going in the existing frames. They're not, even if there was a wall envelope there, it wouldn't be affecting it because they're going in the existing frames. And so I would kind of disagree with Kristen on whether the Scoreup house needs a permit or not. Because of that, it's an old house.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta second what Gary's saying too, because I feel like replacement windows are a thing that you're just sliding into the same exact existing space that exists, and you're not touching the envelope at all. And I don't know, I mean, even a modern house, but again, I think the bigger point is that is this a question that even should be touched by us? Or is this another thing where we should just be passing these along? I mean,
think that's the question. Yeah.
yeah.
Because it would be nice if we had a straightforward answer, like we're able to answer some questions in that way. But now that we have a building department, we might just need to shuttle these questions immediately to the building department and defer to their expertise. I absolutely respect the opinions, Gary, that you and Brian have on this, and I think that's worth bringing up with our building department to see if she would change her opinion based on that background information. But I think ultimately we aren't adjudicating these sort of decisions. That's now a building department decision, is my understanding. Marcia, go ahead.
And that does bring up the good point of the second guessing this stuff. We can't be second guessing each other unless it is brought to us as an appeal question of, and that if the member of the public says, well, I don't understand why I have to do this, there's no window envelope or whatever, wall envelope that you called it or whatever, then I would like to, ask how I appeal this or whatever. I don't know that process, because I agree with you, Gary. If someone can show that it's not necessary, then we don't want to make them do it. We all said in our little back and forth comments, well, if they're not changing anything and just sliding a window in, why do they? But her answer convinced me at that time to say that, oh, maybe they do have to be careful of the casement before they put it in. And so I was like, oh, okay. But when you come back with, wait a minute, the casement is just there. I don't know how we do that. And Amanda, maybe you can get a little direction from Kristen that says, when there's a question, this is what we want to do. Or because I also like your answer, Amanda, that says, hey, we have a building department and this is what they want.
Yeah. I can get clarity though on what happens when there's a disagreement with an applicant and the building department and adjudicated. I don't think that we have clarity on that yet. So
Well, I think that's also harkens back to my earlier question about like what needs a public comment and what doesn't, is because I think a couple of people that asked me about why there was no public comment is that they also have questions about what the process is with the building code. So that would be a good clarification.
okay, we can work on that.
Brian, I'm sorry.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you're fine. What's up?
I want to say that I think that some of the feedback we get from people, like what you're referring to, is the idea that a new town putting together all its ordinances is all of a sudden a frightening prospect to people who didn't know that there were ordinances in place before. For example, there have been planning, zoning, and building compliance ordinances for Bluff since the Wayback Time Machine. They were just county. Now they're now in town. We're busy writing them, updating them, and doing them correctly for a municipality. And people are saying, what? We have to build to code? Well, you always had to build to code. Some people just didn't know that. So
Oh yeah, I hear what you're saying. I also think that I think also just people were, I just had a couple people ask me too, like why certain things. I was really just asking about public comment. I don't think anyone approached me saying they didn't need to build the code. I think people were just asking about the procedural change of like, we are also implementing a bunch of ordinances that all go through public comment. So I think the question I had that I was clarifying was just why, from a procedural standpoint, implementing a building department doesn't require going to code. And maybe I'm just naive compared to you because I didn't serve on decades of planning and zoning, but I just also didn't know why one thing does need public comment and something doesn't. I don't think it has anything to do with people not wanting to build the code.
Brian, I should clarify that I've been doing this a long time, but doesn't mean I know anything. Things change all the time. And I don't want to be quoted as being, well, Marcia said. I just try and help explain what I think has been happening for a long time. And I totally respect people's confusion because even if you'll notice, we're confused by it. So, and we're the ones writing it. So I agree with the people who want to know more.
Mm-hmm. Luann, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for another interruption, but I just want to clarify that just a little bit, because what happened here and why it came through so quickly is we were working with San Juan County. You all did the land use clearance and it all went to San Juan County. They put a stop to it. It was a sudden stop. It was like an overnight stop. And we went a week or two without any building potential. So it was a quick turnaround to make a building department and get an inspector so that you could go ahead and do things because the county just was kind of an instant stop. But otherwise, they had been doing exactly what we're trying to do. We just are trying to do what they had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
So it's very impressive how quickly the town moved on this so that there was not like significant harm done to people that were waiting on business or that wanted to apply for a business or building permit. So really kudos to the town. But yeah, hopefully Brian, we've answered the question generally of why. Like
yeah, I mean, I was literally
triggers
just asking a procedural question. I wasn't trying to make a argument that like building codes don't matter or that people haven't had to follow building codes. I literally was just asking why
Yeah.
ordinances we pass normally have to go through public comment, and establishing a whole host of new rules doesn't, and I was answered, and that's all I was asking.
And are you clear? Do you feel pretty clear on it
Feel
now?
quite clear. Yeah, it makes sense to me now.
Okay. All right. And again, sorry I usually don't comment in your guys's but
No,
thanks.
thank you. Okay, well, let's move on then to item 12, items for next agenda. So that is our work session. As always, we will see if we can address the RV ordinance and then potentially enforcement, potentially idling ordinance, and then discuss bigger picture on the solar energy or renewable energy ordinance. What else would folks like to discuss at that meeting?
Any more answers
That
you
sounds
get from Kristen, just if you reach out and she manages to answer you in time, but with you gone and her busy, you may not get many answers yet. So
Did you say enforcement spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I meant to if I didn't, but I was thinking it.
I think that's plenty.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's then, item 13, any other items to bring up tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
second,
Okay. Meeting or we don't have to call this one to vote, right?
you just say yes.
Okay. All right. Meeting is adjourned at 7:13 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome. Good job,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. Brian, feel better, but have fun.
Oh, I will. Don't worry. I'm so